Divorce lawyers of Reddit, what plot twists, or crazy antics or demands have you seen go down from either spouse? I was in a mediation where it took the couple an hour and a half to split their personal property, retirement accounts, real property, and custody of their 6-month-old son. The rest of the day, about 4 hours, was spent arguing about how to split the time with the dog. For the kid they just put, as agreed upon by the parties, but the dog had a strict calendared schedule working out holidays and strict pick-up drop-off times. I was ashamed to be a part of that unbelievable display. My parents stayed together for years because they couldn't agree on who got the dog when they divorced. They announced to my brother and I that they were divorcing the day we had to put the dog down. The dog's dead and we're getting a divorce. Happy birthday, son! Not necessarily a crazy divorce story, but my dad is a lawyer and his friend has been married 3 times, so my dad has been his divorce lawyer twice and his best man 3 times. More like 5 times best man. Took the couple 2 hours to decide who would get the groceries left in the fridge. Estimated value of the groceries was around $40. 2 hours of my time, opposing counsel time, and mediator time added up to about $1,000. It all came down to a Costco Sam's Club-sized jar of peanut butter. Who keeps peanut butter in the fridge? This is what happens when you negotiate on an empty stomach. They should have had a Snickers. You get a little divorcey when you're hungry. My dad says he won the custody hearing, because my mom got to keep me. Our case fell apart over a massage chair. They had 2 kids. Couldn't let go of the damn chair. Sounds like a tactical move. I remember thinking massage chairs were awesome as a kid. Even if one parent gets custody of both kids, the parent with the massage chair will be the cool parent that gets all of the love. In short, massage chairs tear families apart and ruin marriages. I had a case where the estranged wife was calling my client's employer repeatedly, accusing him of theft and other white-collar crimes, to try getting my client fired. The thing is, the children were with her, and she was also demanding child support, which is based on his income, for the job from which she was trying to get him fired. Fortunately, the employer was onto her bullshit, and my client wasn't let go. I was a clerk for a law firm in Marin County. The husband grew weed in the house. The town was supportive and even let him redo his electrical panel to accommodate his crop. Long story short, in the divorce, she demanded half of the weed proceeds. Today it doesn't seem like a big deal, but 12 years ago I was shocked to see that in a court document. When my parents got divorced, my dad had written in the divorce decree that my mother could not make any religious decisions for me, including regular church attendance, baptisms, etc. My mother was raised Mormon and my father was pretty adamant that I would not be raised in that religion too. My ex-wife kicked me during our initial sit-down with our divorce lawyers. Stood up and delivered a full-on front kick to the thigh. She's a bad kicker, luckily. In retrospect, it may have been because I called her a soulless cunt just before that. Who knows? My friend's ex-husband tried to force their daughter to have to choose which parent she would live with every year on her birthday. The daughter wanted to live with mom. Dad is always out of town for work anyway. The judge told him that in no way was he going to force this girl to disappoint one of her parents every year on her birthday. Her ex-husband is a dick. Happy birthday, sweetie. Time to choose who you're going to live with this year. I choose mom. There's no rush, you have all day. I want to live with mom. I need your final decision by bedtime tonight, okay, honey? I don't want to live with you. I only want to live with mom. Don't leave the decision to the last minute, okay? I'm gonna go grab a beer. We'll talk about this more later. Not a divorce lawyer, but my sister just went through a nasty divorce. It sounds like a movie you would see on Lifetime. They split up after 28 years of marriage because he fell in love with a lesbian stripper half his age. He emptied their savings and borrowed against their 401k so the lesbian could start her own lesbian bar, which was bankrupt after 6 months. There are many more sordid details which I'll go into if anyone is interested. Edit more details, since there's some interest. First of all, my now ex-brother-in-law is the least likely guy to do something like this. Imagine Mr. Cleaver, from Leave It to Beaver, cheating on Mrs. Cleaver. Totally unexpected. My sister found text messages on his phone. The lesbian in question already had 2 children, yes, I know. Not a very good lesbian, and was pregnant at the time she met my bro-in-law. The lesbian would show up at his work approximately once a week and get a check even though she was not employed there. He bought her a car and rented a house for her for a year, paid in advance. Even when all of this came out, my sister wanted to reconcile. At the first counseling session, he gets up after 15 minutes and says something like, "Nope, not gonna happen," and leaves. So her divorce lawyer requests financial documents from his business to decide alimony and child support. I forgot to mention they have 4 children together, the youngest of which is in college right now. Anyway, he didn't want to release any of the financial documents pertaining to this business, so my sis says, "Fine, I get the house and car and you get all the debt." He agreed to that, which makes me want to know what he's trying to hide by not releasing the documents. Anyway, the divorce was just finalized and my sister is devastated. This is the only man she's ever been with. They met in college and now 28 years later, nothing. The worst part is, if he asked her, I wouldn't be surprised if she took him back. I would lose all respect for her and do my best to talk her out of it. It was a real shock. I know that divorce is common, but not in my family. Mom and Dad were married 49 years before Mom passed, and none of my numerous siblings went through a divorce. Big scandal. I had a couple arguing for 3 hours over who got the kids on Christmas Day, only to discover at the end that they were both Jewish. I had another woman who said that her husband drained $60,000 from their community bank account to pay for a sex change operation that he never told her he was planning to do. Not a divorce attorney, but I clerked for a judge that handled divorce cases. We had a couple that were both lieutenant colonels in the Air Force. They had one daughter that was about 11 or 12. Both had graduate degrees and were generally intelligent people. Well, the husband had an affair and things went sour with the relationship. The daughter was at that age when her relationship with the mother was starting to get a little strained, and she mentioned how she wanted to stick with her dad because he was about to be stationed elsewhere, and the parents would be going their separate ways. The mother absolutely freaked. The first thing she did was go to the local police department and claimed the father had been molesting and raping the daughter. They investigated and couldn't find any evidence, so they dropped the case. The mother, still furious, then goes to the Air Force Office of Special Investigations and reports the same thing. The Air Force then suspends the husband from duty and conducts their own investigation. Same result, no evidence of wrongdoing, and the case is dropped. The mother then goes to the next state over where the husband is about to be transferred and contacts the local police there with the same story about molestation and rape. They of course do their own investigation, but same result, case is dropped. Of course, this whole time the daughter has been interviewed a dozen times by psychologists, various therapists, the police, the Air Force, and who knows else. The daughter is straight up traumatized by this. People constantly asking her if her dad had been touching her, raping her, and so forth. Not to mention the harm it did to her father's career. He was basically screwed from any possible promotion just because of the allegations, as well as the fact that infidelity in the military is a big no-no. But that was his own doing. Well, once word of all this gets back to the judge, he is furious. He's a former Air Force JAG and still has contacts in the ranks. Well, anyway, the couple comes in front of him one day for a hearing and he outright tells her she better stop this behavior or he's going to hold her in contempt of court for the maximum amount of time he can lawfully hold her in a cell, contact the DA and recommend the filing of charges, contact her Air Force superiors and recommend reprimand to the fullest extent possible. And basically anything and everything he can do within his power. It was one of the most messed up things I've seen during my relatively short experience in the legal world. A father and his friend go to pick up his child for some time together. He rings the buzzer of the apartment, no reply. He phones too, no answer. This is odd, because he is there at the scheduled time and the mother never misses an opportunity to claim that he doesn't care about spending time with his child and that he routinely misses scheduled times together. The father and the friend figure, that's odd. Let's walk around back to the parking lot to see if her car is still here. They go around to the back, to find the mother and child sneaking down the back stairs to leave the building. The child sees the father, yells, "Hi, Daddy," then turns to his mother and says, "See? I told you Dad was coming to see me today." I'm not a lawyer, but this is a story about my uncle and it's quite brilliant. My uncle has been a lifelong videographer and still works to this day as a news photographer. During the early to late 90s, he stopped shooting news and started shooting freelance. This was before everyone and their moms had a camera, editing software, whatnot. Eventually, he became a sought-after photographer. In the 80s, when he was working as a news photographer, he met and married a reporter news anchor, of which he would go on to have 2 children with. After leaving the news business to freelance, he decided to start a video editing business with his wife. That went extremely well for a while, and they were making money hand over fist. He would be asked to shoot for channels such as Food Network and HGTV, DIY, etc., and then edited into the show. She would work as the middle woman for his clients and as bookkeeper. Eventually, she would turn out to be a secret substance abuser and adulterer, and their marriage ended in divorce. At this point, my uncle was making a couple $100K a year with their business. She decided to sue him for alimony, mostly because he was worth a good chunk of change, but also because she helped him build his business. Her demands were ridiculous, something like 75% of the business for the next so many years, or something crazy. My uncle's lawyer was afraid she was going to win because she had played such a big role in building the biz. Fast forward to court day. Her lawyer stands in front of the judge and lists off what she wants in the divorce. Once he is finished, it's my uncle's turn. He blindsides her and offers to give her 100% of the business. The judge and both lawyers are confused and ask him if he is sure. Without him shooting and editing, there is no business. So basically, she would be left with a hell of a lot less than she asking for by asking for X amount of profits. The judge reasoned that his offer was fair and that she could take it or leave it. She was pissed, her lawyer was pissed, and she ended up getting nothing, haha. Not a lawyer, but I work in a law office. We had a guy who cheated on his wife transfer all of his money, slowly over time, to his girlfriend before the wife found out about their affair and filed for bankruptcy to avoid having to give his now ex-wife anything in the divorce. The ex-wife hid his artwork, works he had purchased long before the marriage, and in mediation she tried to sell it back to him. My now ex-stepmother was getting an 80-20 settlement, and refused to agree until the agreement was revised to include a bag of old beer can koozies and a dry-rotted pool float. She was crazy, which is why Dad was paying her to go away. Hate to be not a lawyer, but, however, this is still in line for what kind of story you're looking for, I think. Basically, rich couple had a really bad falling out. The husband decided that he so hated his ex-wife that he hid all of their money and, last I heard, is still in jail for contempt of court for refusing to give up the location. So yeah, a few years now. Must be a special kind of hate to risk an indefinite sentence, since you can be in jail basically as long as you're held in contempt, which he kept doing each court appearance, just to deny your ex money. Joke's on her, not only does he get to withhold all the money, but he also never has to see her. Sounds like the husband is the real winner here. One of my uncle's ex-wives actually hired a hitman to kill my uncle so she could collect his life insurance. The hitman was actually an undercover cop. She did 4 years for the crime. If this gets any response, I'll tell a more in-depth version of the story. Some crazy shit happened. My dad was a divorce attorney for some time. He said people would argue over $150 patio furniture for hours on end at a $300 per hour rate, each side. It's not about the patio furniture, it's about sending a message to your bitch of an ex-husband wife. I'm not a divorce lawyer, but my dad is a lawyer, and he's divorced, so WTH. My dad was a real gem when he divorced my mom. He had my mom served while my sister was in the hospital with neuroblastoma. She had radiation and chemo and was in isolation because she had no immune system to speak of. The process server had to go to the children's hospital, go to the cancer ward, and break my sister's isolation seal to serve my mom the papers. The nurses had to escort him out. Also, it was Christmas Eve, and my mom's car was stolen that night after she had just moved out of his house and had it filled with all our stuff and Christmas presents. Edit. Since there seems to be so much interest, and most seem to think I'm willing to overlook his transgressions for a job, I figured I'd explain further. My dad is detestable a-hole to be married to and divorce. As his daughter, I witnessed and know way too much about how he treats his wives. But this is one aspect of his character. He has always looked out for my sister and I, even if his views were misguided and his delivery sucked. This happened almost 20 years ago, and I carry around their divorce with me. But I feel the healthiest thing for me to do is forgive and live in the present as best I can. I live at home for the time being so I can be a better sister to my half-siblings and spend quality time with my dad. As for the job, I'm a broke fucking millennial. I'll take what I can get. There's this rich couple that are suing a company for something or other. A guy on the jury is hanging out with a friend one afternoon, and his buddy starts telling him about this cougar he's banging. Supposedly she is a giant, controlling bitch, but she spends a lot of her husband's money on him, so he puts up with it. Partway throughout the convo, he drops her first name, and the jury dude goes, "Wait, is her name underscore underscore underscore?" Friend replies, "Yeah, do you know her?" Turns out it's the rich lady from the case he is on. The next day he had to recuse himself from the case, because he couldn't look at her the same way. The couple's lawyer demanded an explanation as to why he was dropping out in the middle of everything, so he had to tell the judge, the lawyer, the lady, and her husband. Accord. Anyways, that case was put on hold for a long time, because they had a divorce to get to. Oh, and I've been a piece of shit lurker for like a year and a half, and this is my first post. So yay! My two favorites from working in a legal office. 1. Husband and wife get divorced. Wife went into the marriage with her own house and 3 cars, him with nothing. She mortgaged the house in her name, as the bank wouldn't give her anything if his name was on it too, to let husband start a trucking business, buys all his trucks for him and pays off the mortgage herself. He becomes successful. They divorce. She just wants enough money from him to square her mortgage. He can have the business and everything else. He sells everything to his friend for $10 next to nothing so that he's got nothing on his name and doesn't have to pay her squat. She's now going to lose the house. 2. Custody battle over 2 children. Father threatened the mother with a shotgun, cut her phone lines, got charged for assault on her. She flees town with the children. He demands she come back, and she agrees to visitation so the kids can see their father. During one visitation he punches her brother in the face at the changeover point and tries to steal the children. Visitation stops, and he chucks a fit that she's stealing his children, and she's lying about being afraid of me. I did nothing. The court psychologist signs off that he'd be an emotionally abusive sole parent. When the court says no to his demands that he get sole custody, he verbally abuses the judge, his lawyer, his barrister, the psychologist, and the independent children's lawyer, in front of the entire courtroom. He narrowly avoids arrest. And the whole time this case is going he's always yelling and screaming in the office that the court system is biased and only women get custody. It's a mummy's court. You're all sexist against men, etc., etc. No, you're just a douche. 3. Edited bonus. Man has wife and 3 kids, everything in his name. Finds a younger model. Dumps her by text message, changes the locks, and goes into hiding. Wife has a chronic illness that means she can't work, and now she's stuck with 3 kids. And to rub it in, he's changed all the bills and payments to her name, mother's address, and mailed her nearly $10,000 worth of accounts. And no one can find him. Not a divorce lawyer, just someone that has gone through a child custody battle, and I had to tell my one great story under oath. Sit through this one, Reddit. I can't make this shit up. My ex and I had broken up and she decided to get an apartment 30 minutes away from where our apartment was. It's probably for the best so we'd never run into each other in public. My ex is a first-grade teacher and found a school to work for on that side of town. My daughter went to school there too, just to make it easier on her mother. I drive there and pick up my daughter from school every single day during the week because I work at 5 a.m. and got off at 1:30 p.m. I became good friends with all of the stay-at-home moms and would talk with them every day after school while our kids ran off their energy on the playground. On my days off, I'd drop her off and just hang out on that side of town and get to try new restaurants, find new comic book shops, etc. On one particular day, I decided to try Wee Man's Chronic Tacos for lunch. Now, what they don't tell you about Wee Man's Chronic Tacos is that you need to be within 30 minutes of a toilet after you eat it. I was on my way to get my daughter and I felt like I had to fart really bad. I just casually looked around and let loose in the car. It was at this moment that I knew I had made a terrible mistake. Yes, Reddit. I sharted my pants 30 minutes from home, 10 minutes before I had to pick my daughter up from school. I had a simple decision to make. Go up there and get her anyway or make something up and come back later. I checked myself out, and thankfully it didn't show through my jeans, so I waited in my car until I heard the bell ring. I went up there quickly and took my daughter aside. "Sweetheart, this is really embarrassing. Daddy had an accident. You can't play with your friends today. We need to go." Like a trooper, she understands and we leave. Now, I told you that story to tell you this story. I left out one major detail above. The routine was, I'd pick my kid up, she'd play with her friends, her mother would come out to the playground and see her for a little while and then leave. On this particular day, I broke the routine. On the ride home, my phone is going off like crazy. My phone was on silent, and needless to say, I wouldn't have answered it anyway. I get home and I have 20 missed calls, all with voicemails. Fast forward to our custody hearing. I've got 2 lawyers, she doesn't have one. Without getting into too many details, it generally isn't going very well for her. She's desperate, really desperate to make me look like an unfit parent. Representing herself while I'm on the stand, asks about what happened on that particular day. The day I kept her daughter away from her. Read it, I looked at my lawyers, who I also had to tell this story because I saw this coming. They smiled and gave me that. "Well, go on. Look." I had to tell the story about how I shit my pants after eating wee man's chronic tacos to a judge, a bailiff, and a court stenographer. Midway through this story, the judge goes from looking at me with this piercing glare to covering her mouth, trying so hard not to burst out into laughter. Seeing how well received my story was, my ex had no further questions. The judge ended my getting off the stand with, "Well, now that's on public record." I froze. That's on public record? Oh man. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why I tell this story now. If you were to look up my court case, there's an official version of this story somewhere on public record. I hope this is the kind of thing you were asking for, OP. Do you have a similar story? Leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.